Welcome to Teatro Absurdo. That's Spanish for Theater of the Absurd, a program from Jaguar Bridge Productions. Well, hello, I'm Huilo Marvavilla. I'm your hoster toaster, here to unravel, untwirl things that shall not be said. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Teatro Absurdo. We're now running into episode 23. I hope you enjoyed the musical exploration with Gracie last week, or whenever you're listening to this. And this week is a monologue. It's an investigation by me, a sort of editorial expose on justice. And justice is a conundrum in modern society in many ways. You know, I personally think what's absurd is when the judge asks you to raise your hand to God that you won't lie or something like that. And honestly, justice systems around the world are the furthest thing from God, divine, Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, Eve consciousness, goddess consciousness that I know of. Some of you know I'm out there involved in very deep mirroring and investigation of justice in Costa Rica. And I thought it was so funny. I was in a court, and of all the people that were about to testify, the judge asked me like 2 or 3 times if I believed in God, I guess because of the way I looked or some presumption. And what happened was, is so interesting, is now there are 2 perjury charges against 2 of the people that testified that were Costa Ricans that are marching to church every Sunday. So it's selective, you know, and that a judge is deemed a role, a position of godlike to make decisions based upon what people say and evidence before them. And we live in societies, and it should be, you know, you're innocent until proven guilty. The unfortunate thing is there's so many ways for criminality to win. And that's on both sides. Like, we look at some of the emotional things that are happening in the United States with regards to policing and such. And my concern and my warning is to people that if we care for this planet, if we care for our future generations, if we don't fix the justice systems and the officers of the police system, we're basically just, there's no hope for the planet. I'm sorry. I just get into these sort of postures of deep grief for the, I don't know, there's kind of just like an apathy, and let's do the least we can. Like, there's currently a festival running in Costa Rica, and a lot of cool people go to it from all over the world. And my take is that, you know, our festivals are great at the core. You know, we bring healing modalities, good music, and live art. Yet no one wants to question ourselves, you know, the do-gooders, the cool people, the hip people, as to what we're actually supporting. And that festival in Costa Rica supports the 1%. I mean, it's still classist and racist. It, you know, invokes $10,000 a week VIP tents. Poor people are infused to see themselves as noble volunteers to pick up trash around the area. I mean, my feeling would be, well, can we say to the people in the $10,000 tents, maybe put Costa Ricans in them for free, maybe give Costa Ricans free food for the entire week, and maybe the festival probably brings in 10,000 people now. Maybe 5,000 of those people are Costa Ricans, and they're free. Because what happens is our hosts in many, many ecotourism retreats around the world are not really benefiting and being taken care of. I mean, it's paltry. I mean, you can't say, well, we go there, we take care of them, we pay for their hotels, when people are constantly demanding cheaper prices in other countries, and that affects the workers. So where I'm at with this, blah, 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 and then we'll go into this monologue, which is about 20 minutes, is, folks, the invitation right now is to level up on governance, self-governance, justice. Can we do things differently? Like, my feeling was anywhere, and even because it's direct action in Costa Rica, is like, why do people not rally around when any of our friends is in a justice system that isn't working, as opposed to just watch and say, that's them over there? Because eventually we're all going to be affected by this, and it's not going to go away. You cannot say, well, I don't listen to the news, I don't surround myself by negative people, all these things, because it exists in this spectrum. So it might behoove us to learn how to transmute, transcend, transform the medicine of the underworld, the things that we don't want to look at about ourselves, in order for the world to become in a more positive state. But again, as I said in the last, talk I had, batteries need a positive and a negative side. And we're living in a dualistic dimensional field. It needs the positive and the negative. Yet, the more we don't look at the negative, not like feeding it, yet observing it and say, well, okay, how does that live within myself? What can I change about my own shadow self? So, judgment, schmudgment. Let's dive into this, and on we go. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye. Hear ye, hear ye, he come to judge, he come to judge. Well, hello there, my little pods, beans in a pod. My, we're deep into the exploring of the Theater of the Absurd, Teatro Absurdo, right? By the way, is Godot here yet? Or are we still waiting to make sense of the senseless? Don't commit suicide, we've got this, I think. Today's expialidocious exploration will be on the farcicality of justice. It goes without saying that recent developments in the USA, rights for women, has been ludicrously smashed back into the Dark Ages. It almost feels as if we can smell the burning bodies of witches again. What the fuck? Maybe it goes without saying that those in power who've reached their power by lobbyists, religious dark money, and bizzillionaires, they've now placed their judges, not ours, into the judiciary system as a whole. Yuck. Our governance, without a doubt, is in the hands of a few, and we keep getting that hammered, and yeah, well, whatever. We know this. The 1% control nearly everything you do, except for peeing, but even then, who knows? What does this mean? Get your arse out there and shake it up any way you can. Seriously. Our politics spreads across borders, affecting judicial systems everywhere. And I have some personal situations I can reflect on from my time in Costa Rica. However, let me begin, my little judgettes, that in my advertising curriculum, we had to study business law. In it was the law of contracts and torts. Not tarts, mind you, but torts. How wrongdoings were treated in the biz world. Perhaps at the time it seemed cumbersome to participate in that class, yet throughout my life I now see how almost everything we do, involves a contract of some sorts, and knowing a little bit about that is certainly going to help you. Oh, yawn. See, look, and even more so today. So, did Judge Judy ever reveal that time that when you cross a sidewalk is a contract? When you start your car is a contract. When you turn on your computer and enter YouTube, that's a contract. Well, certainly if you post anywhere. And there's contracts of immediate censorship. When you go shopping at a store, there are contracts. At the doctor's office, there are contracts. What I'm saying is, like advertising, 6,000 ads a day shot at you. Today, one is governed in any moment by thousands of laws. Mississippi, goddamn, Nina. Mississippi, goddamn. Some of them just continuously hum beneath the surface without us knowing. Oh no, and you can't be ignorant to the law. And yes, absolutely, some laws protect you. But then there are those that diminish us, which reduce self-autonomy and self-governance. Your very rights to your life, your very beingness, especially if you are a person of color, a person within the LGBTQ plus spectrum, women, etc. You can't be you if a judge seems to deem that your very essence is wrong. Now, mind you, I'm not referring you have the right to go out and just slug someone. Although at times I know we want to, right? Doing things inadvertently wrong that counter, say, even sacred law. I'm not talking religious law, I'm just talking basics. Just because you think you're entitled, like having an AK-47 or something rifle. There's a difference between right and wrong, people. I hope you can sense what I mean here. There are so many things that seem so unjust right now in our world. Like, how can a plant be illegal? I'm going to get on that later, but a plant, it was created by divinity. Did God make a mistake? I guess they're trying to go back to that apple story in the Garden of Eden. But I'll ruminate on these a little bit more. Right now, contract law is so useful because some of the basics, unless otherwise specifically stated in a contract, can well offer the recovery of rights. Say, for example, as in the case of a word-of-mouth contract that was suggested to me in Costa Rica. First of all, word-of-mouth contracts, if accepted, should also adhere to the basics of contract law. That is, if the contract is ever changed or modified at any time through words or actions, it nullifies the original contract. Because once it's addended, it becomes a new contract of sorts. So if one accepts a behavior, say for example paying rent, and the landlord then accepts periods of one not paying rent for a period, say longer than 3 months, with no course of action to collect back rents, then it changes the original agreement, thus making it null and void to pay rent. I mean, there has to be a course of events that suggests the landlord wanted rent continuously, and there needs to be a time limit. But for example, what I was hit with the demand after 2 years is absurd. And so many other things that I'm not even going to go into. Mississippi, goddamn. Also, it is important in word of mouth contracts in these arcane Latin American systems to note what was exactly included in the contract. If it was ever changed, when and how was the tenant notified? Man, don't fall asleep on me, honey, honey, honey. I'll do a little dance, make a little love for you. Bitch, please. Bitch, please. But by acceptance of action, by non-doingness, hence recourse, at the time, one creates a new contract. So you get it. I'm going over this. Especially in the vague, cumbersome, nonsensical word-of-mouth contracts. Another example is the ludicrous priorities of legal situations in Costa Rica, and this can be anywhere, but I'm going to relate a certain matter to that place. Anyway, I don't want to go into details, but suffice it to say, I was verifiably kidnapped, beaten, and robbed. And to this day, 5 years later, there has never been a court date issued for conviction. Can we say pura vida? The criminals run free. Yet while I was having a conflict one day with a neighbor, and this is just a pissy thing, it was becoming difficult to pass them in the street. Just someone's bitterness. So in my annoyance one day, as is custom in that country, people mumble things to locals to the effect of adios, to God. They say a sort of blessing. They're not all saying goodbye, maybe. So I thought I'd join in, and I mumbled the words that translate to God with the thieves, robbers, and liars. To that, this neighbor took personally, and he began yelling at me in difficult to understand Spanish, basically just bullying me. At the same time, I had visitors from the Social Security Department who were trying to speak to me and get into my place from the street. This belligerent neighbor continued to harass me and the guests so much that he tried to block them from entering. And he continued just to shout things in Spanish, to which I was very annoyed now, and I told him, "Cállate, shut up." Mind you, I wasn't waving a fist or pushing or shoving, no profanities, nothing. But dude, shut the fuck up. To the neighborhood bully. Well, why I went through this is to reveal to you that the neighbor then went to the justice office and filed a complaint of psychological violence towards me for saying shut up. Seriously? Later that day, the popo come and revealed that such legal complaint by the neighbor, which I had to sign and respond to in 5 days. And not only this, it also caused a response from the immigration police. They showed up as well. And I'm like, you guys have so much more to be doing. This is ridiculous what Costa Rica focuses on. And a lot of that's fallout from United States ideas. And anyway, what becomes ridiculous is you have a situation where a neighbor can come at you for telling them to shut up. And when there's dramatically violent crimes, nothing gets done. Nothing. And these are the places that are selling themselves as the happiest place on the earth, Pura Vida, the home of the venues for transformational miracle vacations. And I'm working on a film actually to really enlighten that injustices in the ecotourism capitals of the world, this one specifically. But indeed, why aren't they paying attention to human trafficking or something across your frickin' borders? Or the dramatic corruption in your governments. But what happens is these sort of come down from the maliciousness of U.S. posing justice on these other countries. Anyway, this isn't good at all, and yawn, blah, blah, blah. But I think justice is a huge topic to continue to unpack. I mean, look at the recent farce right now, the raid on a drag show in Miami. Are you fucking kidding me? Invoking a draconian law from 1947 about men dressing in women's clothing. Seriously? Outrageous. I mean, there's a weird YouTube video of Giuliani and Macy's and drag in a public place. Ugh, I don't know. Anyway, let's bring our attention to the injustice within the empire, the USA. Years ago, I saw a very nasty taste of public law. I had participated in an anti-war demonstration because of Bush Daddy's idiotic war with Iraq. During one resistance, I was arrested and placed in jail, if only for an hour or an afternoon. I don't really remember. However, a few weeks later, there was a court issuance delivered to many of us, for those of us who were in the street, for what they said was blocking traffic. Boo-hoo. The courts were, I think, processing about 100 protesters at a time. So this day, the courtroom was filled. The energy was electrical. It was actually very interesting. The lawyers for the state were, of course, corporate attorneys from the likes of Chevron, etc., and the attorneys for the people were former representatives of the Black Panthers. No, silly, not the big kitty cats. So no doubt this courtroom was an interesting arena from the get-go. And they deliberated for 8 hours, all day, basically. The point was that, were we blocking the road or not? When in fact, it was revealed the police had heard we were coming, the protesters, and blocked the road before we got there. Thus, the charge of blocking a public passage was not substantial. Hear, hear. Bitch, please. Bitch, please. Bitch, please. Anyway, the irritated judge raised their gavel and dismissed the case entirely. Smart enough they were to recognize it is our divine right to protest peacefully, especially to an emotional war. He expressed that these cases wasted his time and taxpayers' dollars. Ka-ching. The audience applauded, but the judge was impartial and told us to stop clapping at that point. Anyway, Nina, Mississippi, goddamn. So my first taste of judicial bullshit in action. It often is a curious state of affairs when justice and religious dogma overlap, as is the dangerous case with the rising of Christian nationalism in the United States, that they feel the words "in God we trust" is their God. Money! And that phrase posted upon our money somehow allude to the notion that the USA is and should be governed by Christian ethics, or should I say the lack thereof. This is something very confusing to me, as in a very deep WTF, what the fuck. If a government or state or country was to be governed by religious doctrines, I mean, God forbid you're gay and in Iran or an Arabic state of religious governance, shit, I'd be stoned to death. Good Lord, what humans do to each. Seriously? Now, mind you, I'm not knowledgeable about all religions, but to say the least, I do believe in them as something noble, to the effect of love one another, forgiveness. They teach that jealousy, envy is shit, as in Cain and Abel. Yet through selectivism, religion, when superimposed by governance, they often leave out whatever they want. And they enter an aspect of doctrines that suit their needs violently. This is absurd and appalling. Leave the judging to God, the divine mystery, right? Goes without a doubt that justice is in dire straits in many, many, many places around the world. It's imposed upon people through corporate money, religious fanaticism, and sheer ignorance. Intended, imposed ignorance, the dumbing down of education, another topic. One could justify anything, so what can we do? Well, first speak up. So many rights we have are because people started to talk about it and rallied, organized, ran for office, whatever. It's how we got gay marriage. So now the title of gay divorcee is obtainable. Oh my God. What if I had to pay alimony to all my ex-lovers? Oh dear. And it's how weed got legalized. It's also how climate change, hopefully, will be diverted. But we need justice to start at the basic level, human rights. For goodness sakes, word-of-mouth contracts are an obscure form of agreement and easily manipulated. Do you hear me, Costa Rica? Get rid of them. A simple piece of paper, signed, etc., can go a long way to avoid nasty, vengeful tactics. And everybody study gender. Study Hermetic laws or Gurdjieff, sacred laws. Get a basic sense of authentic principles, for God's sakes. And look at ways of invoking restorative justice. That's a good one. Ways to level up the origins of crimes so they won't happen in the first place, like more social programs, collective healing. So, yes, judge not, lest thou be judged. Hear, hear, judgettes. And that's Huilo Marvevilla signing off for this week's Teatro Absurdo. Don't forget to subscribe, like, do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight, whatever it takes. Thank you. Aloha, ciao.